So it's 9:15, so I guess we can start now. And a very warm welcome to this today event. The title of the event, as you can see, is Digital Peacebuilders, Promoting Coexistence, Anti-Semitism Awareness, and De-Radicalization through Social Media. It's a true pleasure to open this international gathering here in Rome and to see so many colleagues, educators, researchers, and activists join us both in person and online. A very warm welcome to our distinguished speakers, Alexander Ritzman, Rivka Rosenberg, Evan Kapros, Rawan Osman, Caroline Preisler, and to our remote guests, John Aziz and Ali Shaban. But these last people will join us in the second part of the morning. This event was born out of the shared conviction that peace building today must also take place in the digital sphere. We know that social media can divide, distort truth, information, and radicalize, but it can also connect, educate, and inspire people, both young and less young. Our challenge and our opportunity is to reclaim these spaces as platforms for empathy, coexistence, and democratic resilience. We know that anti-Semitism is not only a threat to Jewish communities, it's a threat to democracy itself. It undermines trust, solidarity, and truth. It exploits fear and resentment, often amplified by online social networks that spread hatred faster than we can respond. But we also know that there is a growing movement of educators, digital activists, and creators who are using the same tools, social media, storytelling, and digital technology, to counter misinformation, challenge hate, and build bridges between communities. Today's program reflects that spirit. We begin with expert talks exploring how to understand, track, and counter extremist narratives. So the first of our invited speakers is Dr. Alexander Ritzman from the Counter-Extremist Project in Germany, who will open by analyzing how organized anti-Semitic networks operate both offline and online, and how we can effectively respond. Dr. Rivka Rosenberg from Bar-Ilan University in Israel will be presenting innovative pedagogical approaches that use AI, augmented reality, and digital storytelling to strengthen Holocaust education. And Dr. Evan Kapros from the Association Mosaica in Spain will invite us to reflect on the ethical dimensions of technology and the values that should guide digital innovation for peace. After the coffee break, we'll turn to the voices of activists putting these ideas into practice. So our panel will feature Rawan Osman and Caroline Preisler, with a live connection to John Aziz and a video message from Ali Shaban, four remarkable individuals who are transforming social media into spaces for dialogue, empathy, and shared humanity. This event has been made possible thanks to the collaboration of the Institute of Educational Technology of Italian National Research Council, the associations Memoria in Verità per le Vittime del Terrorismo, and the Mosaica from Spain. This event was funded through the European Practitioners Network Against Anti-Semitism and with the support of the Federal Foreign Office of Germany. Thank you all for believing in this initiative and for bringing your expertise, creativity, and commitment. Organizing this event has not been easy, given the broader political climate and the particular situation we have experienced in Italy over the past year. That's why we are especially proud and deeply grateful to have made it happen, despite many challenges along the way. We hope that today's discussions will inspire us intellectually and remind us of the moral responsibility that comes with our work. Every tweet, post, or video can either reinforce prejudice or open a window to understanding. Every educational initiative, however small, can help shape a generation that refuses to be indifferent. Thank you all again for being here. I wish you all an inspiring and thought-provoking morning. Before we begin with our three invited speakers, we'd like to share a short video, a 5-minute collage featuring digital activists who promote peace and coexistence on social media. After that, we'll move on to our first speaker.
Shalom Aleichem, Hashem Shalih, Amjad.
I'm a proud descendant of the ancient Israelites, the Bnei Israel.
And I am a proud descendant of our people, Emirati, from the UAE. For too long, the story of our region has been written in conflicts and plagued by outsiders who have gotten between us. But today, we choose a different page, and together we stand.
You see, unity doesn't come from uniformity. I don't need to become like my cousin to know that he is a part of my family. Our spiritualities should never be used as weapons to counter one another, but rather, as the children of Ibrahim, we have a lot of work to do, work that can only be accomplished together.
We're here to convey the message that Muslims and Jews, Arabs and Israelis can unite together for peace and understanding.
Meet my friend Luai Al-Sharif, an Arab-Muslim peace activist who once held deeply negative views about Jews and Israel. So let's break the cycle of hate together. Yay!
Palestine or pro-Israel?
Which side are we on?
On our page, you might see content like this.
Criticizing violent Israeli settlers.
Or explaining how Israel became a safe home for Jews.
And you might be wondering, which side are we on? Israel's? Palestine's?
Actually, we are on the third side.
The third side doesn't believe in division, hate, or extremism.
We believe in the innocent human beings on both sides who deserve to live in peace.
We believe in our power to fight extremism and our potential to build peace in the Middle East.
On our page, you can expect to see content of amazing people.
Building inspiring initiatives and communities and companies.
Whether Lebanese, Yemeni, Israeli, or Palestinian, there are people who are building a better future in the region, and you might not see them on the internet.
We'll share explainers answering your questions about the Middle East.
In dark times like these, we want to share hope and spread voices.
We want a moderate and peaceful Middle East.
So, follow us at Builders of the Middle East.
And be a part of our mission.
Previously, I used to be afraid of everything that is Israeli. I used to be afraid of an Israeli flag. And the thing that helped me the most to come to my realization and my views right now was that I started to talk to Israelis and to see them as individuals, not as ideas or ideologies. So I think that in the future, even if there is a two-state solution, extremely important to get the two societies to start talking to each other. So this is why I want people to sit together, to see each other as a human beings, not as entities or states.
This is Marwan.
Good morning.
And Marwan is just minutes away from exposing the truth about life in Israel for Arab citizens.
Just like everywhere in Israel, all the signs are in Hebrew and Arabic.
This is my school. There is lessons in Hebrew, Arabic, and even English.
كل الأماكن المقدسة مفتوحة للجميع، تحظى بحماية كاملة. كون رؤية المسلمين بيصلوا في المسجد الأقصى، المسيحيين يزورون كنيسة القيامة، واليهود بيصلوا عند حائط البراء.
My name is Yirmiyahu, and כשנדבר עברית, Israelis ask, why is this Arab guy wearing a kippah? And لما بحكي عربي, Arabs go, how does this Jewish kid speak fluent Arabic?
You see, I'm on a mission to help Israelis and Palestinians learn to trust each other, despite the language barrier and cycle of trauma.
Here's how I do it.
When a Palestinian goes, why should I trust you? I tell them how my family lived in the old city of Jerusalem for 7 generations.
And since my family spoke Arabic to our Arab neighbors, the Arab culture and language became a part of my childhood.
Now, as a content creator, my mission is to use my skills in language, education, and activism to rebuild the trust that extremists try to break.
Because I believe understanding each other is the only way we can solve how to live together. So share this story with both Hebrew and Arabic speakers so we can rebuild trust. One story, one friendship at a time.
Are you outraged with the war in Gaza? So am I. My name is Rawan Osman. I'm half Syrian, half Lebanese. Since October 7th, I visited Israel 9 times, and I want to testify before God and you, Israel is not the problem.
So let's break the cycle of hate.
See each other as a human being.
Each other.
One story, one friendship at a time.
Together.
But today,
Israelis and Palestinians are united in saying enough is enough. It's time for a new beginning.
المشاعر اللي عندنا لا توصف زي ما انت شايف يعني احنا من الساعة 12 في الليل للساعة 12 الظهر اليوم احنا بننتظر هذا الفرج وهذا الانفراج علينا.
I'm full of hope. It will be a start of a new era.
نأمل أن يكون هذا مقدمة لإنهاء الحرب بشكل كامل ويتم إعادة الإعمار وإدخال المساعدات.
If you can say anything to the Palestinians, like what would you say to them?
That we wanna live together.
We want peace.
Yeah.
We only want peace.
The price of war was so high, we must pursue peace. This is the time to rebuild bridges. This is the time to do more peace deals. This is the time to learn how to live together. Israelis and Palestinians, Jews and Muslims, we all belong in the Middle East. Now that the war is over, it's time for peace.
Okay, so now it's the turn of our first guest speaker, Dr. Alexander Ritzman. He's a senior advisor at the Counter-Extremism Project, where he leads the organization's work in Europe on far-right extremism and terrorism. With over 25 years of experience in preventing and countering violent extremism, he has advised the European Parliament, the German Bundestag, and other international institutions. He was also a senior advisor to the European Commission's Radicalization Awareness Network, co-developing the Gamma Plus model for effective counter and alternative narratives. Dr. Alexander Ritzman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Stefania, for the kind invitation. Thank you to all the organizers for bringing me here. It's always a privilege to come to the eternal city of Rome. This was a great uplifting presentation. Before the video, some good input, some good feelings. Unfortunately, my input will be less uplifting, but I hope it will be constructive, helping us to deal with the problem. So the Counter-Extremism Project is an NGO, non-for-profit, founded in the United States 10 years ago. Since 5 years, we have an office in Berlin. And what makes us different from other organizations who work on extremism and terrorism, we work on all kinds of violent extremism and terrorism, is that we don't look only at incidents, but into strategies of extremists and terrorists, networks, the financing. So we're basically looking at the professional extremists, not so much at only individuals who are involved. And this, what I'm trying to present, the missing piece of the puzzle, is I'm going to be speaking about organized anti-Semitic networks. Now, just this year, the liberation of Auschwitz death camp was celebrated. Never forget is a very important approach, but of course we might all agree that that's not enough to remember the past. We have to deal with what is going on right now, and you could even say that we need to do things differently and do things with a bit more effort sometimes, or let's say with a bit more pressure. This is at least the way we're looking at the challenge of anti-Semitism. Now, the Federal Foreign Office has funded a study that we did where we looked at 5 countries, you see the 5 countries, and we were trying to understand what role anti-Semitic narratives play in the justification and mobilization towards violence. The study is freely available, and we realized that it, as a result of the work, might make sense to advise policymakers, the German government, other governments, to look at anti-Semitism also in a new way. Because we saw that there's a lot going on. There were Islamist networks, there were connections to organized crime, there are foreign states that have a hand in organizing anti-Semitism. We, of course, have left-wing extremism, we have pro-Palestinian extremists, and we have right-wing extremists. And we've seen collaborations sometimes, spontaneous or organized, and this is all in the report. We have a situation, and you might have seen that, following this idea that the enemy of my enemy is my friend in Poland. Some right-wing extremist groups declare their solidarity with Palestinian extremists and terrorists. We have German right-wing extremist groups that have slightly twisted that slogan, which I think is actually from Martin Luther, that the Jews are our downfall. So that's a problem to say in Germany. It might be illegal, so they say Israel is our downfall. And the flags you're seeing here are the flags of the German Reich and Palestine, right? So this is again trying to show solidarity with the enemies of my enemy. Of course, if they would get their way, they're not really friends of, in my understanding, of Arabs in general. So we also have on the extreme left collaborations. This is in Berlin, Potsdamer Platz. We have like Trotskyist, anti-imperialist left groups. We have Long Live the Resistance, Yalla Yalla Intifada. I'm sure Frau Preisler will share her insights from being in the middle of a lot of these demonstrations. And looking into all of that, the way we as an organization look at violent extremism and terrorism is, it makes sometimes sense to differentiate between the organizers and the people who conduct some activities. So we recommend to differentiate between general anti-Semitic crimes, meaning someone does something that is considered anti-Semitic, for example, a crime, and there's people like us that are sitting in a conference right now organizing anti-Semitism. They do workshops, trainings, conferences, they have handbooks, they are well connected. When they get up in the morning, this is what they want to do, and when they go to bed at night, they are happy about a successful or not successful day. We are working on them being less successful. This is just to show some of the connections. This is in German, I apologize. So we have the PFLP, Palestinian terrorist organization designated decades ago. They founded Samidun as a support network, helping with the finances. Then they founded Mazar Badil. This is basically one network, and then you see connections to Hamas, to Islamic Jihad, to the Houthis, to left-wing extremism, to Hizb ut-Tahrir, to the Grey Wolves in Turkey, to BDS, of course, and to Palestine Speaks, which is then more in the online dimension, which we're going to talk about in a second. So is this a network? Are these coincidences? This is something we want to find out. Now, looking at Samidun, this is them celebrating October 7, for example. This is an organized anti-Semitic actor network. And the recommendation here to focus, or let's say allocate some resources by governments into identifying and then combating organized anti-Semitic networks has a couple of benefits. First of all, you have more of an impact if you attack and disrupt the professional anti-Semites who do this all day and for a long time. This is not an October 7th situation, as everybody here knows. But you also reduce the risk of conflating citizens that might be demonstrating for a truce or have some demands, maybe might be at a demonstration where some people yell yalla yalla intifada or glorify Hamas. So you avoid making the problem bigger by really focusing also on the professionals. Now, we talked about Samidoun, there's Mazar Badil, which you can see, so there's the PFLP, a terrorist organization. You have Samidoun, which is banned in several countries because, for example, on October 7, they were handing out sweets on the streets of Berlin, Neukölln, which is where I live, the neighborhood, like 5 minutes away. So they were banned for organizing, glorifying the celebration of terrorism. Yeah, this seems to be a double slide, just doubling down on the point. Now, online. It's a strength and a weakness that it's so easy to get connected if you're an anti-Semite. Right, so here we see Palestine Speaks, a lesson in liberation, and you see the paragliders. What are the paragliders about? They were used to cross the fence between Gaza and Israel and, for example, to attack the Nova Music Festival. Right, so what is the lesson here that these people are advocating? Now, you see I think that this network has about 50,000 followers online. And then in Germany, there's the discussion, is saying from the river to the sea illegal? Is this calling for the destruction of Israel? And lawyers would always say it depends on the context. So here's the context. So someone on October 8 is posting this, highlighting a strategy or tactic of terrorism and saying from the river to the sea. So this is a test case for when this is glorifying terrorism, and we have a network that is celebrating terrorism. So depending on the legislation in the country, this is something law enforcement can look into. Of course, this is also something social media providers should look into. But over the last 2 years, the followers of this network have doubled, of course, right? So I'm not aware of any intervention. And you see, they're listing themselves. It is super easy. If you take 1 week, and you don't have to be very, talented in the online game. You can map out a professional anti-Semitic network within 1 week without a problem, because the platforms will recommend you the next group, the next group, the next group. And then you just need some indicators to differentiate between people who are maybe just anti-Semitic, which is a problem, but not my problem right now. My problem are the professional anti-Semites that organize all that. So you can differentiate between people who might have anti-Semitic convictions and those who are professional anti-Semites. So if you would follow this line of thinking, you would need to map these key actors. The easy part is to say what kind of group is having anti-Semitic ideas, narratives as a core component. This might be, of course, very well-known groups, but it might also be not very well-known groups. And for those, we can start, for example, by looking who was putting out content on October 7 and 8 before the Israeli armed forces were going into Gaza, while they were still fighting in Israel and Israelis were still dying. Who at those 2 days was putting out content justifying, glorifying, celebrating the attack? This would be the starting point of a network analysis. And then the weakness of social media is the algorithm, if you are interested in democracy. But as a researcher, it is very helpful because basically the network shows you the network. So if you have indicators and a starting point, and you look at specific incidents and the behavior of some of these groups online, you will see the professional anti-Semites. So what to do about this? So at the Counter-Extremism Project, we work on the overlap of organized crime and violent extremism and terrorism, which exists in the Islamist sphere, of course. It exists in the extreme right sphere. And sometimes the organizers of, for example, anti-Semitism are very smart. Right? They're not stupid. The stupid ones have been taken care of in one way or another. The smart ones are not openly calling for violence. They might try to organize in a way that doesn't look like an organization. So 100 years ago in the United States, Al Capone was running the mafia in Chicago. They couldn't get him convicted for the murders that he actually facilitated, but they got him for not paying his taxes. So we've been for 6 years advising the German government now on a follow the money strategy into all kinds of extremism and anti-Semitism. The toolkits are there to show you that governments have different toolkits. The ones fighting anti-Semitism have a smaller toolkit than the ones fighting organized crime. Because the organized crime folks, they really look at money laundering, fraud, other kind of illegal activities that might be relevant here. So the recommendation is to move from a mostly reactive position. There's an anti-Semitic incident, we have an investigation, we have reporting, maybe we have sentencing, and then there's another incident, and the government is basically dealing with the incidents into looking at organized anti-Semitism like we look at organized crime. So we need proactive investigations into the professional anti-Semites. Some of them receive public funding because they also do maybe something that is not related to their anti-Semitism. Maybe they get funding for a youth or a social project. So first of all, you need to know who these folks are. Then you can advise local and state and federal governments not to give them money for other activities. Sometimes these folks are connecting donations for Gaza. How do you collect that? Who receives the funds that are being collected? There's tax evasion as a possibility. Many of these groups were around during COVID-19. Did they apply for COVID support money? Did they fill out the forms properly? This is all about disruption. This is about managing and disrupting the professionals that are like us, getting up in the morning, doing their work on a constant line. So organized crime linkages also exist in Berlin, in other cities and countries between Islamist extremists mostly. This is also an interesting area for an intervention. Now coming to an end, the way government looks at crime in general is that there's different silos of responsibility. You have law enforcement for politically motivated crimes, for financially motivated crimes. You have the prosecutors, the tax authorities, the intelligence agencies, the customs. This could be much bigger. And the idea is really to say we need a table where they all sit together looking at the top 10, top 100 organized anti-Semites, the professionals, and then everybody brings a piece of the puzzle. The one law enforcement agency knows about these folks, intelligence knows about them, tax authorities don't know. But they might have a business that is violating the regulations, so if you put these two together, you can prioritize tax investigations, for example, and so on. So we need a format, and the format is not a very innovative thing, it's a task force. In the United States, this is a way to go against organized crime, for example. Sometimes in Germany this is happening, in other here, I mean, we're in Italy, who am I telling anything about organized crime? So there are tools and toolkits that can be deployed against these groups. So what we need is, in our recommendation, we need to develop approaches that are practical on a national and local level to disrupt these professional, organized anti-Semitic networks. We need, of course, a bigger or better international collaboration. I mean, we are an international collaboration, so we are already doing this. Governments are within the EU, I think, pretty good at sharing information, but working together is a little more complicated, but it can happen through Europol and other mechanisms. This is actually established. A lot of the things, and this is what I said before, I'm torn because as a researcher and advisor, it's great that I see all these professional anti-Semites on social media and that their accounts are growing in terms of that's not great, but it's good for the analysis. But a lot of these networks, if they're glorifying terrorism, for example, like the example I showed you, violate the terms of service of Instagram, of TikTok. The terms of service is the rules that the company says you have to play by our rules. If not, we will kick you off the platform. But this is like a shop or any other business that says if you don't follow our rules, we will kick you out. At the end, the company decides if they follow up, if they actually execute their rules. And this will only happen through pressure. The Digital Services Act seems to be not strong or precise enough to enforce this, so public pressure, exposing the key actors is something that might move social media companies into being more proactive towards glorifying terrorism, justifying terrorism, funding terrorism here. And in general, and this is my final point, we are supposed to be a network, to beat a network, and that's why I'm so glad to be here with all these excellent colleagues and you to discuss how we can get better at fighting anti-Semitism and especially organized anti-Semitism. Apologies, I forgot one thing. Last second. This is the house of Rudolf Höss, the former commandant of Auschwitz. Yeah. The Counter-Extremism Project bought that house, and we're currently establishing a research center, the Auschwitz Research Center on Hate, Extremism, and Radicalization. This is supposed to bring in PhD students to try to establish a counterbalance to what is being taught at some of the universities regarding colonialism, critical race theory, which are all important ideas, but seem to have gone a bit overboard, but also the kind of analysis that I've been trying to put forward. So if you're interested, look it up, Archer, at House 88. 88, of course, is a Nazi code, but this is the actual number of the house, the street number. So we just thought we're going to own this. We have the study, we have a practical guide on to identify these key anti-Semitic actors, and we have Archer, so you're invited to join us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. When the new center will be available, will be open?
It is open now if you want to visit it.
Okay.
Of course, it's not finished yet. We have Daniel Liebeskind involved, the architect, who wants to build a research center next to the house. The house will not be a memorial.
No.
It will be a space to reflect about what to do now. The Auschwitz Foundation is not allowed, and the museum, to talk about anti-Semitism today. They are only allowed to talk about the past. So they're very happy to partner with us because we are talking about and looking at it from today. So that's the collaboration. So anyone who would like to visit the house and be part of what we're trying to do there, please reach out to us. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much, Alexander. We have time for questions after at the end of this session. So now I give the floor to Dr. Rivka Rosenberg. Rivka is a global educator and advocate in Holocaust education, Jewish heritage, and the fight against anti-Semitism. She's a third-generation descendant of Holocaust survivors. She combines historical remembrance with cutting-edge technologies like AI and virtual reality to foster empathy and tolerance. She currently serves as director of AI education at Sheba Tel HaShomer Hospital and lectures at Bar Ilan University in Israel. Rivka, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Professor Manka. Sorry, I lost my voice yesterday. connecting to what Mr. Ritzman just said, I'm in contact with Pastor Kai Hess, who wanted to lecture with me many times. That's the connection to the house you just saw. He's the grandson of Rudolf Hess. So my name is Rivka, and I'm a pedagogue. I'm a lecturer at Bar Ilan University. I also run the, if you can change the slide to the next slide, please. Oh, sorry, I didn't have this. Yes. Sorry.
The other way. It's
up.
It's opposite.
Down.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. I didn't have this before. I run the AI for education. I run the at the Sheba Hospital in Israel. There is an AI academy, and I am the director of it. I am a curriculum developer, and I have 2 social media initiatives, which I will talk about soon. One is the Play Whistle. And my parents have a initiative in the United States and Canada. It's called Names Not Numbers. And you're welcome to, of course, to connect with me. I will start with an activity that I often do with students or my students at Bar Ilan, that I ask them, when do you think anti-Semitism began? So I thought I would have a little bit more time. I would do this with you, but if you scan this, it creates a brainstorming it's a brainstorming activity, and of course people often say abroad that anti-Semitism began after October 7th, but it began actually in, does anybody know when it began, anti-Semitism? 2000. Many years ago, and in the 2nd century, they say in the 2nd century, with blood libel. The myth of blood libel, that these are, of course, depictions of the oldest anti-Semitism that there is in the Middle Ages. So I was trying to find online, since I love the internet and technology, I was trying to find a timeline, but I ended up creating my own timeline. So this is the 2nd century, of course, in the Middle Ages. This is the oldest time that we have for anti-Semitism, the oldest pictures that we have. Then the 18th century, I'm going quickly, and then, of course, the 19th century, racial anti-Semitism, 20th century, and these pictures that I found, and of course the 21st century, and so on, till, unfortunately, today. So I'm going a little quickly, I'm sorry. Who made up the word anti-Semitism? So it was coined in 1879 by a German journalist called Wilhelm Marr, and this is and he referred to where Jews were targeted for supposed to biological traits, a form of racism rooted in the 19th century, called scientific racism. Okay, this is the first coined. He coined the term anti-Semitism. Of course, we have Nazi propaganda, and we have, today we have the IRA definition, okay? So everybody, if you see different pictures and people say anti-Semitism, we have a clear definition of the IRA that says a certain perception of Jews, which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews, rhetorical and physical manifestations are directed toward Jews and non-Jewish individuals, their property, community, institutions, and religious facilities. This is the IRA definition. In the 21st century, we just had the coronavirus, and there were many ideas around the world that Jews made up the coronavirus. Online hate speech and memes, deep fakes and disinformation, anti-Israel activism and conspiracy theories, these are all in the 21st century. And broader hate networks are also racism, misogyny, etc. This is also related to this. And of course, you see the picture with the Jews with the big nose. Since October 7th, unfortunately, we see a wave of a tsunami of anti-Semitism around the world, and really all over the world. Here are a few pictures. This on the right is the United States, and the restaurant of, it's called Miznon, it's a kosher restaurant, in Germany, in the United States, in France, all over the world. This in the middle is Wolfgang Sobotka in Austria. Was head of the parliament. He's erasing what it says there, death to Zionism. I just put here, you just easily put in the internet anti-Semitism after October 7th, and this tsunami of pictures. As an educator, if you are a teacher, there's a website called My Atlist. It's like from the word atlas, and you can create your own map, and you put in, let's say, the places where you have anti-Semitism, and you can create with your students visual aid like this. Of course, there are from the river to the sea, and gas the Jews. I've had on my social network, the Hitler didn't do a good enough job. All kinds of sentences like that. So how can we harness technology that to build empathy, resilience, and truth? This is my field is educational technology. I always think of how we can use technology to make this a better world. So to change the negative into the positive. So we have, of course, gamified learning, fostering critical reflection. I'm talking quickly, I'm sorry about that. Virtual classrooms. I use virtual reality with my students at Bar Ilan. There is a platform called Virbela. You can create a whole environment. You can create, it's based on immersive learning, and these are just ideas on harnessing innovation. Of course, social and cultural digital storytelling and memory projects. I'm involved with Dr. Racheli Kreisberg. She's the granddaughter of Simon Wiesenthal. She has a digital platform called Swiggy, and I work with her also on various projects. Online Muslim and Jewish collaborations. At Bar Ilan, I teach only the Arab students, and we do creative activism, art, and music together. Bar Ilan is the biggest, one of the biggest universities in Israel, and there is, of course, a large Muslim population. And this is one of the things I do. There is a hackathon, Hack for Hate, Hack the Hate, and there are many of these hackathons in Israel, against online anti-Semitism. And getting to what my second hat is, first of all, the Names Not Numbers, my parents' initiative in the United States and Canada. It's an oral history project that teaches high school students journalism techniques and video techniques. And every 2 students in a high school are assigned a Holocaust survivor. One interviews and one films, and then they switch. And then there is a professional who creates a movie of the movie in the making. And then at the end of the project, there is a very, very big event for the community, and the Holocaust survivors and their families get the students' movies and the professional movies. And it's been going on for over 20 years. It's quite a distinguished, it's an award-winning project. On the board is Professor Michael Birnbaum. He's very well-known in the Holocaust world. Virbela is the community-based VR heritage restoration that I do with my students at Bar Ilan. It's based on the Virbela VR platform. And my passion is voluntarily, I promote the play Whistle. Whistle, my mother was Mengele's secretary. It's based on a true story of a person who lives today in Sfat, and his mother was Mengele's Jewish secretary in Auschwitz. And Hadar Galron, that you see on the picture there, she sat with Yaakov for a whole year, and she wrote his story, and she plays it. And we go around the world. It's a monodrama. It's very easy to bring everywhere. We were in Italy once, in Merano, and it's translated into 9 languages. We were in 16 countries. Next month, we are going to be at the UN. And if you'd like to bring Whistle to your area, we would love to come to Germany, which we're not yet. And so this is Whistle. We were in Vienna, in the parliament, in Austria, in the Austrian parliament. And of course, Hadar is British, so her English is very good. And this is Whistle. And this is my parents' initiative, Names Not Numbers. You can look it up also. A few ways to fight the oldest hatred in the world are these technologies. For collaboration, Answer Garden. These are a few. If you are a teacher, I think that you'll find this interesting. For the rest of you, maybe a little less. For creation, you can create various projects on Geniali, Canva. VR, immersive learning is Virbela. Gamified learning, there are many gamified video projects around these technologies, escape rooms, apps. There are many apps for you can use in your classroom. AR is augmented reality. Mobile learning, of course, there are many. I'm going quickly, but this is the time that I have. Social media, my colleagues here are going to talk about they're more knowledgeable than I am over there. But AI is school IAI, Nano Banana. You can all use these for various projects with your classrooms. So grazie for inviting me. I'm sorry for going so quickly.
No, actually, you still have 10 minutes.
Oh, so I would love for questions. Can I open it for questions?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, that's much better.
You can use your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of technological tools, so I don't know if you have any examples, specific examples.
Yes. So I will go back to. I will go back to the. I will explain Virbela. Okay. So Virbela is a virtual reality platform. So when you buy the rights to use Virbela, you get various platforms, and you can design them. Obviously, as a teacher, you should not design it. Your students should design the areas, okay? And they can upload various contents. You can upload from PDF. It's not just uploading. It's really PDFs and projects and PowerPoints and music and text and lots of. There are also. In Virbela, there are ways of using games. So you can really design the whole platform. For example, I'll give an example. So during the coronavirus, I was looking for a job because my job was not, I wasn't able to go to the university. I was looking for more jobs, and I found a job on LinkedIn, and it was for a chain of schools in Australia. And they wanted a course on Jewish heritage and Hebrew language. So I offered, instead of Zoom, everybody was so tired of Zoom, so using Virbela. So they agreed to this, and we designed a whole, we received like different environments. For example, I got an island. The environment looked like an island, so I designed Eilat. Okay, the city, the most southern city in Israel. Of course, it's on the Red Sea. So I designed Eilat on Virbela, and I really we studied about Eilat, and then the students designed the city, and of course they go in as an avatar. So when you teach a language, you can also talk about the way you design your clothing. Really, it's based on immersive learning. It's hard to explain a virtual reality like this, but I think you should all, if you're an educator or lecturer, you should use this. it's really the future. And the students, for example, we did a culminating activity. I put an empty map of Israel, and the game was to really put the names of the cities on the empty map. And what, let's say Eilat, there were fish, so these are little kids, so they drag the fish into the city of Eilat. So this is, for example, Holocaust. You can also do this. You can, for example, create a museum, a Holocaust museum for your classroom on Virbela, or even a conference. There are conferences on Virbela also. So this is one of the projects. Any questions? I would love to.
If you have any specific questions about the different technological tools Rivka mentioned, we can ask now. Otherwise, if you have... Okay, you can ask these questions soon when we open the general discussion.
I would like just to add that with Whistle, wherever we go with Whistle, of course, there is the play, but I also do workshops with educators and students and educators. For example, in Merano, I didn't know that Mengele, after the war, he escaped to Merano. And when we were invited by our colleague Antonella Tiburzi to Merano, so of course we performed the play, Hadar performed the play, and then we did a workshop with educators who were second and third generation Nazis, and I'm a third generation Holocaust survivor. I've never met second and third generation descendants of Nazis, and it was very, very touching for us to. We did also the workshop, and together with the play, it was a very powerful experience. So that's what we do. Let's say in Long Island, we were recently with a play, and I had a panel of experts on women's atrocities, so what happened to women on October 7th. So we had Professor Tanya Domi, for example. She's a specialist on women's atrocities. So I think if we didn't have these atrocities, there wouldn't be any jobs like this. But so this is just the types of ideas what we do with Whistle around the world. So it's not just the monodrama, but it's also the different experiences that we have.
Thank you so much, Rivka. Now I give the floor to our third invited speaker, Dr. Evan Kapros. He works at the intersection of tech ethics and human-computer interaction as a senior researcher and educator based in Barcelona. He collaborates with organizations such as the Jewish cultural platform Mosaica, the Polytechnic Museum of Santarém, Project ARC, and Endura. His work explores how emerging technologies shape learning, ethics, and social interaction.
Hello, thank you for having me, and thank you for coming, also to the people who are online. So I'm not going to present today a specific project. I'm going to do one of these talks that take a step back, and we look at what the theme of the conference is today, like digital peacekeeping, because we have a landscape nowadays that to talk about social media or to talk about video games alone, it's very difficult. These technologies are very interconnected. So, for example, maybe you know that there are these channels on Telegram that we call Terrorgram in our line of work, that kids as young as 12, they get links to Roblox levels. Roblox is a video gaming platform that you can make any game, and even though supposedly there are community guidelines, they are very routinely not being followed. So there are many levels in Roblox games that you can play as a terrorist shooter, basically. You can find the Christchurch mosque shooting, you can find the Halle synagogue shooting, you can find the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting. Of course, as you can imagine, there are many representations of Auschwitz and so on. So I think it's difficult to just look at video games or just look at social media now that they are so interconnected. So as a practitioner, I have worked even before Mosaica, which is a platform for Jewish culture in another network that was called Human-Computer Interaction for Peace. So I have been an observer in projects in Ireland, Cyprus, Israel, Korea, and so on. So this idea that with value-based ethics we can make a better work at talking about how we design these technologies and how to inform policy, because what also Alexander said about the DSA and what we can do to improve this is really important to talk about, and the value-based ethics are so much better at doing this work than harm-based ethics, which is what I'm going to argue today. And to do that, I'm going to look into true things like in the old-style 70s political economy type of paper, like the political, the economical, and then the social anthropology of what kind of people have we produced with this use of technology, and so on. Because we see a change nowadays with the way that technology works that breaks something very fundamental in how societies have worked in a long time, because we have had the separation of the social sphere and the personal sphere and the political sphere basically since the Iron Age. So this is what was connected to the democratic experiment all the way back to ancient Greece, and also to like the various Canaanite tribes becoming the Israelites and the Phoenicians and so on. So this is something very old that has happened. In terminologies, there have been different versions of that, like to separate the domus, the agora, and the demos, or to separate the personal, the social, and the political. And we saw in the last century that dictators would very frequently manage to, not manage, they would try to invade personal space, to control subjects. So this was the modus operandi of dictatorships. They would prohibit specific musics or specific religious practices and so on. And this only worked to a certain extent. It wasn't globally successful in any stretch of the imagination. But now in the 21st century, where the dictators had failed, social media have actually triumphed. We have seen a complete flattening of any separation between the social, the personal, and the political. Everything is just information nowadays. So information is being weaponized in this quote-unquote market of ideas for either legitimate but also illegitimate purposes, which is why we see so many informational autocracies nowadays in some countries, a different type of regime, and also a lot of cognitive warfare, including cognitive anti-Semitism, that I'm going to define in a bit. And going back, interestingly, to connect this with history, this type of polycrisis, that everything was connected to each other and there was kind of a multi-collapse, what was also what happened during the Bronze Age and what brought the Iron Age and this separation of concerns. So I think it's really important for us, in order to figure out what's next, to see this like from the big picture and not just, you know, it's one of us, we can present our projects, but then what next? Because we are in a period that cognitive warfare is very intense in some countries and in some regimes. It is official state policy. There are also many non-state actors that they engage in that. And we saw today many examples in the previous talks. And the difference to information warfare is that information warfare is about showing you a lie and then trying to convince you that this is the truth. But cognitive warfare uses half-truths or uncertainty, insinuations or provocations, but not necessarily saying something, just letting things out there. You will see on many hateful and extremist memes on the internet that they say just asking questions, for example, or just joking. And of course, they're not just asking questions. These are not innocent. This is how this thing works nowadays. So the aim is to produce uncertainty and relativism and distrust, not to convince you of something, but just to make you feel that, okay, I don't know, so that you're never going to counter, you're never going to say anything to the extremists, because who knows what's happening? You know, I have heard this thing and I don't really believe it, but maybe not. So we have policy papers from specific states that we know that this is based on an assumption that there is no distinction anymore between peacetime and wartime technology. This is how some states and non-state actors have organized themselves into thinking about these things. And some of these papers come all the way back from 2014. So I think we need to be thinking in terms of decades and how to fix that, and not how to fix something for this year, for this phase of the conflict, but what is the logic that these networks apply. So in order to do this, they actively promote politics that go way beyond populism, that they go straight into conspiracies. And so for historical reasons, not just more often than not, but really almost always, they're also connected to an increase in anti-Semitism, because there is a huge part of anti-Semitism that is connected to scapegoatism and conspiracy theories. Not all of it, but it's a huge part. So if we think about it as a political sphere, that we don't separate it from the social and from the personal spheres, and we don't address the root causes of cognitive warfare and these values, we will not have any effect whatsoever on the fight against conspiracies and anti-Semitism. Tries to police everything is not going to work, realistically speaking. But also in the sense of, we talk about it like economically in the projects that I have said that I have been an observer, such as video games, and of course we saw Rivka's work that is well known in our sphere, in our line of work. They do work, like we know how to build technologies that contribute towards peace building. So for example, one of the seminal projects in this sphere was the Multicultural Island by Elaine Hotter, and so they did a longitudinal study and they were able to observe reduction of hate speech in the classroom from 40% to 80%. Depending on the classroom. 80% reduction in hate speech in an educational project is almost complete de-radicalization. It's amazing. So we have the tools and we have the technology to do all these things, but it's more complicated than just deploying a tool. So you need educational intervention, and you need to go to the schools. So when Elaine was doing this project and I was there as a visitor, we would go, like we would take Orthodox, in Israel, Orthodox kids to the Druze villages, and they would go to their school, and you would also see how life is like. So, but of course you had other mediated steps, that first you would talk online, you don't just go and meet other people from different backgrounds. So you would talk anonymously online. So you could have different stages, and then you have to organize visits. So you have community building, you have mentoring, and then you can have dialogue. You cannot just start with dialogue. And when we try to do these projects, we are continuously being told that these are very slow and they are very expensive to be deployed. So this is almost always the response that we get, especially when you want to do something that has a technology that's not really available to schools, and you want to work with an educational technology corporation, and this is almost always going to be from the company side, like their counter argument that this is slow and expensive. So it seems to us as practitioners in this that one of the biggest impediments we have against peace-building technology is quarterly bonus. So someone wants to get like their bonus in the company this quarter, and they don't see the effect that deploying a technology is going to have next year and in 2 years. And it's just like, okay, what can we do now? Like, okay, just give me a lesson plan that we can deploy in half an hour, and then we will never talk about it. But this is not going to work, and this type of quote-unquote free market will not do it. And we see that because for its individual that is very luckily and thankfully de-radicalized because of what they saw on social media, there are thousands more who get radicalized by organized rage-bait content campaigns. And the fact that they're organized is very important because what we say the free market is not really free. Billions are spent every year on proactively advertising hateful content so that then they can affect algorithms. While we're mostly being reactive, we see some hateful content and then we try to counter it a lot of the time. Doing it also through advertising is a stroke of genius from the extremist part because content is more heavily advertised than the ad campaigns. And these platforms, they work a lot for the advertisers. Like when we had the EPNA event in Belgrade, we had from these tech multi-billion companies a representative, and we asked why they don't do a better job. And their response was basically that the advertisers don't complain like too much about it. So it's very obvious that these companies work for the advertisers, they don't work for the user. But we have no policy to recall a product. Like if your car doesn't work for the user, then the company has to take back the model and they have to fix it and they have to give you a replacement until they fix it. But with tech companies, we let them operate. We have no policy that, you know, if you don't do what your app says that it does, then you have to shut it down until you fix it. So these are the things that we have to start thinking about how to bring this policy in the horizon of like a decade. If we try to think within election cycles and quarterly bonus, we are not going to do it. And the problem is that many tech billionaires actually believe these ideologies that they have and they let them build these technologies. Like the way when they talk about AI, their definition of intelligence has a lot to do with eugenics. This is where they get like this definition of intelligence that is like based on IQ and measuring features based on eugenics practices. Or the way they train their data sets that is based on wage slavery and the extractive destruction of Earth's resources, and also long-termism, that they see events in history, including the Shoah, that there is a direct quote by Elon Musk that he has said that in the long term, like for the next 10,000 years, this was like a blip in history, that it didn't matter. And that like a super intelligence is going to fix all of this. These are dangerous stuff. We cannot these are too dangerous to leave to the tech billionaires. They're not going to make changes to their platforms voluntarily. We have to provoke them despite these tech billionaires. And it is very difficult because we are asked to do this either as volunteers with no budget at all, or we might get like an occasional small grant. And in the flip side, we have to face this like multi-billion industry. So this is really hard, and we have to, I think it's important to talk about values, because this way we can get either more people involved, or we can also go to companies and shake them a bit to say, look, that this metric of 80% reduction in hate speech, it's more important than like the metrics that you have now for your quarter. And then if you don't want to look in the short term, you don't have to go like the people who talk about superintelligence in 10,000 years, like we can talk about human lives, that they have like the horizon within a lifetime. So we have to see how we fund these things. And so when people criticize technology or these big platforms, they have these paradigms that they use from the 90s, like Baudrillard's that we live on the map and not the territory, or the Matrix and all these things. But now we have lived like a radical technological shift that now we are the map. We don't live on the digital map anymore, but we built all this data. We put the photos online that they get the data from. So this is very different anthropologically from what was happening before. And we are not the product. There is this saying that people say when a platform is free, then you are the product. But no, we are closer to being the means of production because we produce the data that these algorithms live on. So when we go through phases that there is an alienation from the means of production, there is an alienation from the self because we are the means of production. So as a result, you see many people who use social media and they get very depressed. They feel lack of meaning and they're very frustrated and very nihilistic. And so then it's very easy for them to believe lies or propaganda or anything like this. So it's not, reality is not a Black Mirror episode. We cannot just wait for something to go wrong, which is what I call the harm-based approach to do something, but we have to think when we design technologies or policies, how about doing the right thing anyway? We don't know that if there is a harm or no harm yet. Let's build it right anyway. And I think that's the policy that we need to push forward to these companies and also the EU and our countries. Thank you very much. I'm short of time. I have so much more to say.
Thank you so much, Evan. So now we have time for questions before the coffee break. No questions? Yeah. The microphone, please.
So I thank you so much. Your talk were really excellent. My name is Aldo Winkler, and I'm working at a research institution. So I would like to ask to the speakers if they can tell something about their ideas and how to prevent these seasons of boycott against Israeli institutions and academies. That is very harsh and hard, but also I would like to ask you about what to do with our students, even pupils of 4 or 5 years old who are told to be against Israel since their very early years. So some opinions about this.
Yeah, thank you for your questions. So the questions are to how to avoid boycott of academic, Israeli academic institutions, which is a very meaningful topic in Italy because we have a very strong movement in the universities, in the research organizations like my organization, Aldo's organization. So we are struggling against these boycott calls. So that's the first question. The second question is how to prevent that very young students and pupils will be educated or miseducated about anti-Semitism. So who wants to take these questions and try to answer?
I can start with the first part because that connects to my presentation. Yeah. So in Germany, we have maybe a similar situation, lots of, not these days, but after October 7, I would say the first 12 months. And so protests, occupation, destruction of property, and some violence by so-called students. But the research exposed that this was not organized by the students. This was often organized by outside groups, by outside professional anti-Semites. So the second part is not my expertise, what to do with students, but the first one, so if we look at the organization of anti-Semitism in the form of BDS, and we put some effort into understanding how this is organized, what networks and organizations are behind this, and if they might be violating the law in some other aspect, this is one way to disrupt this activity.
I'll take the second one. Digital peace builders and promoting coexistence. So I think you can do many projects together, perhaps with teaming with schools in Israel, show them the beauty of Israel, the richness of our heritage, our culture, our history, together, digital peace building and promoting coexistence.
Yeah, and maybe from my view, don't expect that anything will have immediate results. Like BDS started in the 2010s, and in the beginning they didn't have like results before they get like the connections and the funding from other organizations. And then also another thing is also with the students, talk about where they got the idea. I don't know as young as 5 or 6, but definitely with a bit older, that talk about this itself, where does it come from, and expose it, because I have seen even in Jewish publications that they were talking about BDS, and they had articles that were supposedly about BDS, and they were talking about Israel all the time. So you want to do BDS, let's talk about it. Like, where does it come from? Who are these people? And then at the end, let's see if you will still want to do it or not. So I think this is kind of to work with a mentality rather than on the event.
Any other questions? Just a second for the microphone.
Thank you. Just a question from Rika. Thank you for your beautiful presentation. There are only one concept I would like to you express better to me, that I'm not an expert. Anti-Semitism. You said it started by and large 200 years after the birth of Christ. To me, that I repeat, I'm not an expert, it started well before the birth of Christ. And I think about a beautiful music composition from Verdi, Va pensiero, we say, fly thought on golden wings. And the thought was the Jewish people not to be oppressed, not to be attacked, in order to return to their home. But maybe your concept of anti-Semitism is in the information environment more than in the attack of the people or as a people.
So, if I understand your question correctly, yes, it's anti-Semitism is, the term was coined by the German journalist, but of course it's hatred. It's basically hatred towards someone that's not like you, or oppressing someone who is not like you. So that's of course it's an ancient hatred. So it's not the term anti-Semitism was in the 1878, but it's long before that people. That's what I was trying to say, that it's not, you are Jewish and you are a Christian and I'm Jewish. It's really basically hating someone who is not like you. I hope I understood the question correctly.
Yes.
Anybody want to add to this, maybe? No.
Anybody else?
Thank you. I have a
question. It is commonly known that social media platforms are making profits out of hate. So how do you think, or how do you consider that positive narrative will change the situation? Thank you.
Who wants to take this question?
I can try.
Okay.
So I would say social media platforms make a profit out of emotional engagement. Cat videos are also very good, but of course anti-Semitism is also very good for the platforms. And then the platforms say, well, we don't allow for anti-Semitism in their rules. There's no platform that says we are fine with hatred against Muslims or Jews or anything. Everybody has like a rule that says if you do this, you're not allowed on our platform. But as we discussed, the enforcement is not there yet. And the European Union has missed out on the opportunity to put this into the Digital Services Act. The general regulation of social media goes back to the 90s in the United States, where it was like a couple of small companies, nobody knew what this is going to be. We're going to take away the liability. So usually Coca-Cola or anyone else puts out a product, and they have to make sure that the product is safe. Right? You can't just put out Coca-Cola and then people start getting sick and dying. So in the United States, you have liability. In Europe, you have liability. So if anyone who puts out a product or service does something that is harmful for people, they will get sued massively. It will be very hurtful. But social media are not like that. Social media can say, well, we are just providing a platform. We have nothing to do with what happens there. We are not in charge of this. And we are only responsible if we know that this is on our platforms. And then the question is, what do platforms know? To us, they say, we don't know about all these terrorists, but to their advertising clients, they say, we know everything about anyone on the platform. This is why you should give us the money so we can place that advertisement to that specific person who wants to buy shoes or something. And this is the challenge. The regulation is not good enough. And I think the DSA will fail in solving the problems that we have with social media, and the next DSA might then hopefully fix it.
Anybody else? No? Okay, so it's time for coffee break. Half an hour, 25 minutes, half an hour, and after that we have the second session with our two panelists. You want to take?
Se lo tocchi
And I'd like to thank first and foremost Dr. Stefani Manca, who has made this possible. And we have two wonderful guests here. We also have another guest who is with us online, and a video message. So first of all, I'd like to briefly introduce everybody who's here in the panel, starting with Frau Preisler, Caroline Preisler, who is, she was born in East Berlin. She's a lawyer, an author, and politician. She has been, can you hear me? Yeah. She has been active since 1985 and has been a member of FDP since 2013. This year, she won the Eugen Kogan Prize for her clear stance against extremism and open dialogue with critics of democracy. She believes that politics and the people of the state must meet on equal footing in the streets. And her second book, I think, is going to be published imminently by Ariela Verlag. But as you probably also all know her for the symbol that she has become of, I would say, a very clear and direct pacifism in her participating in pro-Palestine manifestations, which are very often, as we have seen, hijacked by extremists, by bearing a sign for the hostages in the middle of these crowds, which is a very, very striking image and a reminder of the power of image for good and for evil. Then we have Rawan Osman, who is Syrian-born, Lebanese-raised, and German-based activist, writer. She's also a content creator and advocates for peace and dialogue between Arabs and Israelis. She studied Islamic and Jewish studies at Heidelberg University in Germany and has a particularly interesting journey. She grew up in an anti-Semitic environment and has now become a self-described Arab Zionist, which I think, it's quite commendable. And her mission is to challenge hatred and build bridges across communities. She's the founder of Arabs Ask, a social media platform dedicated to countering misinformation about Israel in the Arab world, and serves as CEO of Brit Shalom, a forthcoming virtual platform that aims to connect Israelis with Syrians and Lebanese committed to a shared future of peace. She has received in 2025, so this year, the White Rose Society Award and also the Oppenheimer Prize from the Parliament of Baden-Württemberg for her commitment to Jewish-Arab reconciliation, and is a central figure of Tragic Awakening, which is a documentary that explores the roots of anti-Semitism, and is currently working on her first book, which chronicles her relationship with Judaism, Israel, and identity in the Middle East. And I think there is hardly anyone more suited to approaching this topic than her. Then we have John Aziz, who is he's a British Palestinian writer and peace activist, whose works, especially articles, but there's also loads of social media posts, but whose articles have appeared at The Atlantic, Newsweek, Quillette, Foreign Policy, and the Free Press, including a latest one, which, if we have time, I'd like to get some quotes. Before we start, we also have a brief video message. Hi, John.
مرحبا للجميع. بسعدني كثير اني اشارك اليوم بهذا المؤتمر المهم لمحاربة معاداة السامية. لاني مؤمن انه الكراهية لا تهزم الا بالمعرفة وانه الحقيقة اقوى من كل التحريض. اسمي علي شعبان، عربي ومسلم مواطن بدولة إسرائيل. أنا مش سياسي ولا بمثل أي جهة. أنا مجرد إنسان بسيط انولد وتربى بهالبلد. عايش بين العرب واليهود وشايف بعيوني واقع مختلف تماما عن الإشاعات اللي العالم متعود يسمعها عن دولتي وعن مجتمعي. ولهيك هدفي من هذا الفيديو بسيط، أن أشارك معكم عدة حقائق من أرض الواقع من وجهة نظري عن دولتي وحقوقي كمواطن عربي. طبعا عن التعايش والحياة المشتركة اللي عايشينها العرب مع اليهود بدولة إسرائيل يوم يوم رغم كل التوترات وكل الصعوبات. خلينا نبلش. دولة إسرائيل في حوالي 2 مليون عربي من كل الطوائف والأديان، عايشين بأمان مع بعض ومع جيراننا اليهود، والدولة بتعطينا حقوق مثل ما بتعطيهم. عندنا مدارس، مصالح، عيادات، بنملك أراضي، بيوت، سيارات، وحتى في عرب بمناصب عالية بالدولة، وزراء، أعضاء كنيسة، ضباط، قضاة، مدراء مؤسسات وشركات. عايشين بمدن مختلطة عرب ويهود مع بعض، وعندنا كمان قرانا ومدننا الخاصة اللي عايشين فيها على عاداتنا وتقاليدنا، بتعليمنا، بدياناتنا، وما حداش بقيدنا ولا بمنعنا من أي شيء. طبعا عندنا كمان بلديات ومجالس محلية إلنا، نسلم ميزانيات من الدولة مثل كل مدينة تانية بإسرائيل، والدولة بتوفر لنا كمواطنين تأمين وطني، تعويض بطالة، منح لتكميل الدخل، علاج طبي مدعوم من الحكومة، مؤسسات اجتماعية بتخدمنا كلنا مثل أي مواطن يهودي. بسوق العمل في تعايش يومي بمئات المصانع والشركات والمتاجر والمؤسسات الحكومية بين عمال وموظفين عرب ويهود اللي بيشتغلوا مع بعض يوم يوم. على سبيل المثال بكل مستشفى وعيادة اليوم بتلاقي دكتور عربي بيعالج مريض يهودي كتف لكتف مع ممرضة يهودية اللي عم تهتم بطفل عربي. ما حداش بيسألك مين انت، الوجع واحد والعلاج للجميع. وبالجامعات الطلاب العرب واليهود بيقعدوا بنفس الصفوف، بيتعلموا سوا، بينجحوا سوا، بيحلموا سوا، وفيش أي كلية بتسكر أبوابها بوجهي لأني عربي. بقدر أروح لأي مدينة بدي إياها، تل أبيب، إيلات، أشدود، القدس، بير السبع، حر أتنقل، أتعلم، أشتغل، أسافر، وفيش أي حواجز بيني وبين دولتي. واللغة العربية موجودة بكل زاوية، بالإشارات، بالمستشفيات، بالمكاتب الحكومية، بكل مؤسسة بتشوف اللغات العبرية والعربية جنب بعض. ما حدا بمنعني أحكي لغتي بأي مكان، ولا أي حدا عم بيحاول يمحى هويتي كعربي. بالعكس، بدولتي في مسارح عربية، قنوات عربية، إذاعات عربية، مواقع عربية، وكلهم بيشتغلوا بحرية. وفي كمان حرية دينية كاملة. ببلادنا بتسمع صوت الأذان من الجوامع والجراس من الكنائس ونفخة الشفار. كل واحد بيعبد ربنا بطريقته من غير ما حدا يمنعه. طبعا مش كل شيء بمجتمعنا مثالي. مجتمعنا العربي داخل إسرائيل عم بيعاني بالفترة الأخيرة من ظاهرة خطيرة كتير، الجريمة والعنف. بس الدولة عم بتحاول تساعد وتسيطر رغم ان الوضع مش بسيط بالمرة، خصوصا وهي بحالة حرب وعم تواجه تحديات أمنية ضخمة. وبنساش كمان ظاهرة العنصرية. كلنا بنعرف انه مش كل اليهود ملايكة، كمان احنا العرب مش كلنا ملايكة، في عنصرية من الطرفين. بس هاي أقليات صغيرة ومش صوت الأغلبية، والحقيقة أبسط من هيك بكتير. من وجهة نظري وتجربتي أغلبنا عرب إسرائيل واليهود الناس العاديين اللي بالشوارع بدناش غير نعيش بأمان وسلام مع بعض، وبدناش حرب ولا بدنا نضحي بأولادنا عشانه بسبب المتطرفين. بس بدنا نربيهم بالسلام ونشوفهم يكبروا ويتعلموا ويتطوروا. بإسرائيل في عرب بيتطوعوا للخدمة الوطنية، في حتى اللي بيخدموا بالجيش وبالشرطة. كلنا هدفنا نساهم بتنمية مجتمعنا وحماية دولتنا وأهالينا من الإرهاب والإجرام. عددنا عم بيكبر من سنة لسنة لأنه شبابنا عم بيوعوا وبيفهموا إنه خدمتنا مش ضد هويتنا، بالعكس هي جزء من مسؤوليتنا تجاه المكان اللي ربانا وفتح لنا فرص للحياة. هاي الحياة اللي إحنا العرب عايشينها بدولة إسرائيل، وحياتنا اليومية أكبر دليل على التعايش. بالمجمعات التجارية، بالأسواق، بالمطاعم، بالمواصلات، العرب واليهود دائما مع بعض، كل يوم متفاهمين وبنتعاون. وللعالم لازم يفهموا إنه الدولة مش عم تضطهدنا وجنودها مش عم بيلاحقونا بالشوارع، ولا في سياسة منهجة ضد العرب داخل إسرائيل مثل ما عم بيحاولوا يقنعوكم. والخلاف الحقيقي مش بين اليهود وكل العرب، الخلاف بين إسرائيل وبين الجماعات المتطرفة اللي هدفها تدمير دولتنا. هالحقائق اللي سمعتوها يمكن ما تعجبش الكل، بس الواقع بيستناش موافقتنا. الواقع ببساطة موجود، وأنا مش عم بحاول أزين الصورة ولا أخبي عيوبها، بس كمان بقبلش حدا يزورها. صحيح في حرب وعنصرية وجريمة، وصحيح في تحديات ومشاكل مع الحكومة اللي بحاجة لإصلاح، بس ما ينفعش نتجاهل هاي الحقيقة الكبيرة، إنه إحنا العرب واليهود داخل إسرائيل عايشين بتعايش يومي، بنضحك سوا، بنشتغل سوا، وبنحلم مستقبل أفضل لأولادنا. واللي بيشوف الصورة من الزاوية الصح بيفهم إنه السلام مش وهم ولا مستحيل. السلام هو واقع بنعيشه إحنا العرب واليهود كل يوم بدولتنا إسرائيل رغم كل الصعوبات. وهي الرسالة اللي بيحتاجها العالم اليوم في مواجهة معاداة السامية وكل أشكال الكراهية ضد اليهود وإسرائيل. بتمنى تكونوا استفدتوا من هذا الفيديو. سلام.
So this was, I didn't manage to introduce it, but this was the video contribution by Ali Shaban, who could not be with us today, but has emerged as quite an important voice within the Arab Muslim Israeli population. He was born and has lived his entire life, as he said, among both Jews and Arabs, and works for understanding and peace between peoples through Arab language content, which I think within Israel is still a very, very important thing to do. Now I think we can start with questions for our guests. And my first question, which I'm posing to all three of you, so first to Caroline, Rawan, and then also to John, is quite personal to me in that for quite a few months after October 7th, I personally was very unsure as to whether I should speak up, as to what the costs of speaking up would be. And so I would like to ask you, where does your decision to dedicate yourself to peace and to speak out come from? Is it, personal experience first, or did it take shape initially in the digital sphere?
Antisemitismus ist für mich als Deutsche schon vor dem 7. Oktober 2023 ein großes Thema gewesen.
For me as a German person, anti-Semitism was already a very big topic also before October 7th, 2023.
Meine deutsche Familie erkannte nach der Shoah, dass der Kampf gegen Antisemitismus jeden Tag geführt werden muss. So verstehe ich mich auch und ich tue das seit 40 Jahren.
My German family realized already after the Shoah that fighting anti-Semitism needs to be done on a daily basis, and that's what I'm doing since 40 years.
Der 7. Oktober hat nur für mich etwas verändert, denn ich habe erkannt, dass es sehr wirkungsvoll sein kann, zu den Antisemiten hinzugehen und deren digitale Reichweite zu benutzen, um eine eigene Botschaft zu senden.
So the 7th of October changed something for me because I realized that I need to confront anti-Semites directly and use their reach through digital spaces and bring my own message to the people.
First of all, thank you for inviting me. The previous presentations were excellent, and I learned a lot from it. Thank you, Stefania, for your patience and for organizing this. I don't think that I had the process or the time to think through what I was going to do after October 7th. I am aware, and I always said before October 7th, that anti-Semitism is rampant in the Arab world, that if the many Arabs could, they would kill Jews. They literally hate them to death. And I thought that I was being melodramatic because a lot of people tell me this. But I did live in 4 different Arab countries, Lebanon, Syria, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar. But I never imagined that I would ever witness something similar to October 7th. So as a woman and a mother, the shock compelled me to speak up. and I didn't have a platform or an outlet. I just watched what Hamas shared on social media, and very soon afterwards I understood how dangerous social media can be, especially if we observe the various spokespersons of Hamas who are targeting different audiences, different age groups, academics, teenagers, religious groups, non-religious groups, appealing to seculars, to leftists. I thought that I could also speak up and share my message on social media. And social media is very dangerous. My own son, who just started university, told me that I am a dinosaur because I only had Facebook. So you can imagine when I started posting on Instagram, how my followers went from 300, everybody that I knew, my friends on Instagram, and I had 2,000, 3,000, and my son was very confused. You're boring, why are they following you? Meanwhile, across platforms, I have more than 300,000 followers, and I do not post about nail designs and baking. I am very boring. I only talk about anti-Semitism and try to explain Israel and Judaism to those who know very little about them. And this is to emphasize the importance of social media and how viral content can go. I did it again as a mother and a woman without thinking what the consequences could be. But that said, I acknowledge, and I share this with people who think I'm brave, I am privileged. What I mean is that I wasn't afraid that my husband is going to leave me, my boss is going to fire me, I'm not going to lose business. I don't have a father living in Tehran or a brother living in Cairo. My family is not going to get persecuted. They cannot arrest anybody in my family. My direct family lives abroad in safe countries. So my privileged position allowed me to speak up. And I'm lucky that now I exist on social media because I have insights. Unless you are a Jew and exposed on social media, you cannot imagine how hated they are. The language used. There is a German Jew, Aryeh, he became a spokesperson of the IDF. And like reading the messages gave me goosebumps. They wish anti-Semites, but also people, you can see their faces if you go to their accounts. They live in Germany. They wish cancer upon his kids, 2 small kids. The hatred is unimaginable. But I appreciate the insights, because if you're gonna cure a disease, although anti-Semitism is not a disease, I'm just giving an example, then you need to have the right diagnosis. Unless we know the scope of the problem, we cannot deal with it.
Thank you. And for you, John, I'm also particularly interested in what your experience has been.
I think I approach this from the perspective that Israelis and Palestinians are two peoples who we're very much connected to the same land. We have a lot in common culturally, genetically, so on and so forth. And I don't think either side's going to be going anywhere. I think both sides are deeply rooted in the land. And so I approach this whole discussion and this issue through the lens of Israelis aren't going anywhere, Palestinians aren't going anywhere. So we need to coexist, we need to make peace, we need to live as best as we can, you know. And ideally, like many good neighbors, you'd want to be helping each other, to be collaborating together, to be working together to improve the world. So when I come at this issue and when I come at this discussion, I feel like I have a moral obligation, a moral responsibility as a Palestinian living in the West who is, relatively educated, who has had the opportunity to engage and have dialogue with Jewish people from the earliest stages of my life, to try and advance the cause that I believe in of coexistence and peace between the Israelis and Palestinians. But this is not simply an Israeli and Palestinian issue, because anti-Semitism is a global issue, and anti-Semitism is an extremely dangerous, toxic, and poisonous behavior, ideology, that when it manifests in any country, it has the capacity to do a lot of harm, not only to the Jewish people living there, but as the corrosive effects of that on all of the other people. So, with the Nazi Holocaust, it was, the disabled people and the gypsies and so on and so forth. But with, the effects of anti-Semitism in the Arab world, it isn't just pogroms against Jewish people like we saw on October the 7th. The impact is more widely felt. We see the war in Gaza today, which now there's been a ceasefire. But that grew out of Hamas's anti-Semitism and hatred of Jewish people, on a deep and ideological level. Dehumanizing Jewish people, demonizing Jewish people, saying that Jewish people are subhuman. So I think that this is an extremely dangerous ideology for anyone, anywhere in the world. And I think as a Palestinian, I have a moral obligation to reject this, to reject the dehumanization, to reject the demonization, and to advance the cause of peace and coexistence.
Thank you, John. The second question I wanted to pose to, again, all three of you is still focused on social media, but on your on your daily practice with social media. Because it is, as we have seen in the first part of today's event, a very powerful tool, but it also has downsides in that it tends, everything tends to go very fast, the pace is very quick, and there is a lot of superficial messages out there, which I think all three of you have managed in your daily practice to avoid in a very, very happy way. So how do you ensure that words and testimonies retain the meaning, even their ethical meaning and depth, being within an environment where everything often, algorithms, and often turns everything into something quite fleeting? Rowan?
I like to remind people from time to time that an activist is not a journalist, and I'm also not a diplomat. I don't have an obligation to appease anybody. I am biased because I have a clear position. I'm not neutral. And as I'm not a journalist, I shouldn't be your source of information. And you should not count on someone who has 100,000 followers to inform you on something, on such a volatile topic. So take it with a grain of salt, check reliable news sources. I'm given my opinion, and I like to always remind them, you might not like it, and we don't want to be stuck in echo chambers. Unfortunately, we are. But I appreciate criticism. You can come and attack me, but without slurs and insults. Let's not drag it that low. If you're challenging my position, I'm more than happy, and I am one of the rare ones who actually try to answer the comments and engage with people. But again, I'm not a diplomat. I don't have an obligation to appease you. I'm not your mother. So if you're gonna slap, I'm gonna slap back. This is very personal for many of us. My mother and her parents have war trauma. The same goes for my Syrian father. My mom is Lebanese. The same goes for many generations of Israelis, of Palestinians. I have seen what the so-called Palestinian cause used, instrumentalized by the so-called axis of resistance led by the Islamic Republic of Iran, what it's done to our region. More than 500,000 Syrians died in the name of this cause because one of the safekeepers of the cause, Bashar al-Assad, or using it as a pretext, abused the Syrian people. The same applies to the Yemenites. The same applies to the economy in Lebanon and to what Hezbollah has done to my very own family. And I have a large Shiite family in the Bekaa Valley. I grew up in the stronghold of Hezbollah. So this is very, very personal to me. And I make sure, I always remind people to take even my opinion, especially my opinion, with a grain of salt.
I think you managed to do that quite well. And yes, the same question to Caroline, but especially because I think to you, the question would translate, how do you do it? How do you do what you do, keeping that calm and, embodying calm and an image of peaceful resistance every day when you are literally, as we have seen, for example, in the video that was projected earlier, surrounded by people who, more often than not, are not even willing to listen, let alone look at the photograph of an hostage.
Wenn ich zu den Demonstrationen gehe, dann ist es dort immer sehr laut. Deshalb habe ich mich ziemlich früh entschieden, die wichtigste Message auf ein Stück Papier zu schreiben. Dann ist nämlich es nicht notwendig, dass ich eine Stimme habe.
When I go to demonstrations, it's usually very busy, it's very loud and chaotic. So I decided to write the main and key messages on a piece of paper, so I wouldn't need to get loud myself or raise my voice.
Ich arbeite ja und gehe also auf dem Heimweg nach Hause zu meiner Familie an einer Versammlung vorbei und sehe, dort reden sie über Israel-Hass oder dort gibt es antisemitische Botschaften und sie blenden aus den 7. Oktober und die Folgen des 7. Oktobers. Und dann ist das für mich sehr leicht, aus meiner Tasche, die ich sowieso dabei habe, weil ich von der Arbeit komme, ein Schild zu ziehen und mich dorthin zu stellen und 1 Stunde oder 2 Stunden zu sagen, es ist nicht in Ordnung, über den Nahen Osten zu sprechen und dabei über den 7. Oktober zu schweigen.
So often when I go home from work to my family and I see a demonstration like an anti-Israel or anti-Semitic demonstration, I want to do something. So as I already have my bag with me, I have a sign with a simple message like this. And I just stand there. And I realized that those demonstrations, they don't take into consideration the 7th of October. I say you cannot talk about the Middle East without talking about the 7th of October. And I just stand there and do my silent resistance.
Für mich ist es so, dass ich danach in ein gutes Zuhause komme. Für die Menschen auf den Bildern, für die Geiseln, fehlt diese Geborgenheit seit 2 Jahren. Und deshalb finde ich es wichtig, für die zu sprechen, die nicht für sich selber sprechen können.
Yeah, so I can go back home to my cozy home, to a good place, but the hostages who have been held in Gaza for such a long time, they cannot go back home, they cannot speak for themselves. And that's why I want to speak for them.
Thank you. John?
So I think, there's a quote from Martin Luther King, which is, you should try to be the peace that you wish to see in the world. I think that's certainly a good quote to hold in mind for all people who want to, who aspire to be peacemakers. I think this is quite a difficult area. It's very, very controversial. It attracts extreme belligerence and extreme pushback. You know, if you're a Palestinian advocating against the Hamas cause, oftentimes you will face being called, you know, horrific things like a traitor or an Israeli agent or any of these, you know, bizarre slurs that get thrown at people. But I think we have to keep our eyes on the prize and remember that the gains of peace, the gains of having a new relationship based on coexistence, based upon, you know, a better and more humane way of living, that's going to outweigh the temporary discomfort of being called, you know, a traitor or somehow disloyal to the Palestinian cause. Because the fact of the matter is, peace is the most beneficial thing for Palestinians in the end. Peace is the road to dignity. Peace is the road to justice, right? Peace is the road to happiness. Without that foundation of peace, we have, you know, what do we have? Well, you can see what life is like in Gaza. It's a nightmare. So I keep my eyes on the long-term prize of, you know, we need a solid foundation of peace. We need to get away from all of the nightmarish and hellish things that Hamas has put upon the Palestinian people.
Thank you. And that, what you just said, actually brings me to the next question, which is we spoke earlier about, you know, the risks involved in speaking out, choosing a path of activism, and I think on a personal level, I'd also be interested to know what the reverse of that is for all of you. So aside from the $7,000, which we do not get per post, I do think that there are other types of enrichments that we do get from this, as well as the downsides. So, John, can you speak first to, you know, what this experience has given you personally on a positive side?
Well, it's taught me a lot of courage, a lot of steadfastness. I think it's also taught me that you have to kind of think like a chess player sometimes, in that sometimes sometimes you might make a mistake or something bad might happen, right? But the only way to deal with this in a productive way that will eventually win the game is to know, don't panic, think carefully, adapt to the circumstances that are on your head at this time, and then try to move forward in a way that is going to be beneficial in the long run. I am fortunate that there have been, you know, a number of media outlets who are willing to, you know, put my views out there. There are other people in the pro-Palestinian, pro-peace movement, like you know, Mouman al-Natur, who has been published in the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal, you know, calling for an end to Hamas rule and peace with Israel. He was the leader of the We Want to Live movement in Gaza before October the 7th. So he's been protesting against Hamas for a long time. And there are other Palestinian activists like, you know, Ahmed Fouad al-Khatib, who is another steadfast voice for peace, reconciliation, and against dehumanization. So there are a number of us, you know, who are coming through, who do want peace with Israel, right? We want to have a better relationship. We of course we want, you know, a Palestinian self-determination and freedom for the people of Palestine, but we don't want the nightmare that Hamas has led us into. So I think that in the end there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Certainly for people like me who are advocating for peace, I hope there is a light at the end of the tunnel for you know, the other goals that we're talking about, like you know, combating and squeezing out anti-Semitism and really pushing it away from society and, you know, stamping it out. I hope, you know, people call it the world's oldest hatred for a reason, that it is very difficult to deal with, and it keeps on cropping up in new forms, these insidious new forms, and it, you know, it's a very, very poisonous and insidious ideology. So I hope there will be a light at the end of the tunnel for that. I'm trying to stay optimistic. I see a huge, you know, flood of anti-Semitism right now coming from the far left, the far right, Islamists, and, you know, a lot of people who should probably know better, who are swallowing these dangerous and dehumanizing tropes, often in the name of, oh, I'm just criticizing Israel, but what you're actually doing is, you know, bringing in these long held anti-Jewish ideas. So I hope there is a light at the end of the tunnel for, you know, combating anti-Semitism. We have to continue down that road. I consider myself to be, you know, someone who's very committed to that cause. I think anti-Semitism is an extreme danger for the world, for Europe, for America, for the Middle East. But at least I think that you know, that now there's a ceasefire in Gaza, and the ceasefire specifies that this is going to be the end of the Hamas rule, and you know, they're going to disarm and their leaders have to leave, and that's being put into action, put into practice now. You know, I think there is a light at the end of the tunnel for Palestinians as well, and for Israelis.
Thank you. Rawa, in your experience?
Yes, the positive. But first of all, amen to that, John. I do not believe Hamas will disarm. Let's wait and see. Maybe they should be made to. On the positive, yes.
We'll get back to that.
Let's go.
Remind me, everybody.
Let's go back to the $7,000 we're getting per post.
You are a millionaire?
Can you imagine? I post at least once every day. Do the math. So there is something positive. I never knew that I had this power in me. Normally, I do not like the spotlight. I used to be an introvert, still am, unless I'm talking about the Middle East conflict. Something changed, transformed in my brain when I watched, especially the girls. And on my first visit to Israel, I asked to meet Naama Levi's mom. And Naama, for those who don't know her, is the girl who was pulled by the hair, wearing sweatpants that had blood on it. Watching that still gives me the shivers. And I met her mother, and I'll never forget Dr. Ayelet, that she knew her daughter was going to come back, and I knew it in my heart. This is not a scientific statement, but we knew it in the heart. And I promised her, and that was at the beginning of my journey, that Hamas's names, or her daughter's name, will haunt them in their graves. This is a no-go. They crossed every red line. And I became a public speaker, and I traveled around the world, starting in Milano. That was my first speaking engagement. I realized that every individual has a lot of power, and our smallest actions have a ripple effect in the universe. And as someone with a Lebanese mother and a Syrian father, you get an additional bonus. So I'm going to tell you that in many Arab countries, we have anti-normalization laws and policies that are embedded in our constitutions and basic laws, forbidding people-to-people contact with the Israelis. So it's illegal for me to speak to an Israeli, let alone visiting Israel. You might maybe know the story of Iraq's former she was on a beauty pageant, and somewhere in America she took a selfie with Miss Israel. That you know. What you don't know is that this lady, Sara Aidan, is one of very few Iraqis whose nationality was revoked. She lost her passport. It's not that sad. She lives in Los Angeles. But her nationality was revoked, unlike Iraqis who joined ISIS. Her punishment was more severe than those who actively killed other Muslims. So after October 7th, I crossed the red line in the Arab world and I went to Israel. And I've been to Israel 13 times, to the point that I rented an apartment in Jerusalem. And immediately after October 7th, already on October 8th, when I made a public statement and I wrote something in the Times of Israel condemning Hamas and telling the Israelis, I stand with you proudly, a lot of people, progressive, educated, Christians who live in Australia or in Canada, blocked me. Nobody even asked me why. They blocked me. So I lost a lot of friends and family members. But going to Israel, I gained a huge, massive family. When I say I have thousands of Israeli friends, I'm not exaggerating. I cannot keep up with the invitations. And they do not do it to impress me or to impress anybody. The press is not there. They look after one another, and they took me in as a family member. They appreciate it. I'm gonna end with this short story. Even before October 7th, I worked with Israeli and American organizations on Holocaust education, because the world thought the antidote for anti-Semitism was Holocaust education. It helps, but it is not the antidote. It's not enough to get people to pity the Jew. Look at the pathetic Jew. Look at what happened to them. Can you now tolerate them in the Middle East? It does not work. A lot of people know about the Holocaust, and they're happy about it. And they tell you today openly, Hitler should have finished the job. So in Auschwitz, the first time after the Abraham Accords were signed, and I was part of the first Arab delegation to participate in the International March of the Living, the Israelis and the Jews were very confused. What are Arabs doing among us? And a lot of press came to speak to us. And I still remember, and I know this guy, an Israeli journalist, who's much taller than I am and a little older than my son. When I was talking, he had tears in his eyes, and then he had to stop. And then he asked me if he can shake my hand. And I said, of course. And then he asked if he can hug me. And he cried. And that upset me. When I was leaving Auschwitz, I was disturbed, and I was thinking, why did that annoy me so much? And I realized as I walked out, had I told him, you're a filthy Jew, he got used to it. Many Israelis say, they're used to it. He was moved to tears because I love him. This is not normal, and it has to change. And we are committed to it. So it gives me a lot of gratitude to be welcome as a family member, and it is a living proof for every Arab who thinks they just want to kill you, they're a war-mongering people. No, if you come and extend a hand of peace, they will take you in as a family member, and this is in their nature. The impression we have about them in the Arab world is exactly the opposite of reality.
Ich bekomme sehr viele positive Reaktionen. Zum Beispiel die Einladung, für die ich sehr danke, von Dr. Stefania Manka. Deshalb bin ich hier bei Ihnen.
So I also receive a lot of positive feedback, like for example the invitation to this event from Stefania, and yeah, so I'm really happy to be here.
Ich habe gelernt, als positiven Effekt, dass ich die Algorithmen in den sozialen Medien benutzen kann von den antisemitischen Strukturen. Deshalb kommentiere und poste ich selten meine Arbeit selbst, sondern ich warte darauf, dass die Menschen, die auf diesen Versammlungen sind und dort Fotos von mir machen, wie sie mich beschimpfen oder wie sie Israel hassen, es selbst ins Netz stellen. Denn wenn sie es ins Netz stellen, dann sehen sie alle das ebenfalls. Und dann kommt meine Message doch dorthin, wo sie hinkommen soll.
So I learned that I can use the algorithms of anti-Semites, for example, during demonstrations, because when I stand there and I have a message, then they repost all the pictures with themselves around, and then my message actually gets spread out into the circles where I want to have it.
Und abschließend stelle ich fest, dass immer mehr Frauen diese Chance erkennen und diese Selbstwirksamkeit erkennen. So etwas, wie ich es tue, gibt es inzwischen überall auf der Welt. Ich bekomme Fotos von ganz vielen Frauen, wie sie mit einem Schild zu einer israelfeindlichen oder im Kern antisemitischen Versammlung gehen, sich dorthin stellen und ebenfalls Gegenrede halten. Und vielleicht ist unser Kampf gegen Antisemitismus auch eine kleine und feine Graswurzelbewegung, die sehr nachhaltig Frieden schafft.
And I realized that there are more and more women in the world to do the same what I do. They just stand somewhere with a sign and they protest. And I think maybe this can be like a small grassroots movement to resist in our own way and to spread a message of peace.
Yes, amen to that. So time is running out, and I do want to leave maybe a quarter of an hour for questions. So I would probably go to my last question, which is quite complex, but let's try and see if we can make some sense of it, which is based on the fact that, now the hostages, the living hostages, not the dead hostages, have been freed. There is a deal in place, there is a ceasefire. I tend to agree with Rawan that it's a very tenuous deal. And how can I say this? On the one side, I think recent history, I'm thinking of, the Second Intifada, for example, teaches us that there are moments, and these 2 past years are probably the most egregious example of, when the attention of the world is focused on a sole subject, which, surprise, surprise, involves Israel, and anti-Semitism becomes rampant, as we have seen in Europe, and then it starts dying out as social media and the media start occupying themselves with something else. At the same time, the situation in Gaza is all but resolved. The situation between Israel and the Palestinians is all but resolved. So how does one resist? Maybe we don't need that, but many people do. How does one resist the temptation to, pretend that nothing has happened and go back to normal? And, what do you think?
Is there going back to normality?
Exactly.
I know that a lot of
because the urgency, the impression you get from the media, the people, I'm not talking about you or about us, but the people will get the impression that, the emergency is over.
Okay. Let's put it this way, and you're starting with me because my position is the most controversial. Thank you. There is no going back to October 6th. Out of respect to every life lost in Israel, but also in Gaza, there is no going back to October 6th. And anyone who's naive enough to think, let's wrap it up, why can't you give each other a hug and everything will be sorted, does not understand how Islamists tick. I was invited in May 2024 to speak at the Knesset, and it's an ongoing project about sexual violence as a weapon of war against women. And in November, we're speaking at the French Senate. When I finished my speech, people were very emotional because I was emotional. I never imagined me. I used to be an anti-Semite. I'm invited to speak at the Knesset, and I'm defending Israeli women who were raped. So the member of the Knesset thanked me, and I responded spontaneously, almost impolitely, because I said, don't thank me. And it's still on YouTube. I told her, don't thank me. If the same happens to our women and children, I expect exactly the same from you. And I did never imagine that last time I was in Israel, I was doing exactly that. I was showing them the videos of what happened in Sweden. We should all recognize that we have a common enemy, and that is Islamism. Radical Islam, political Islam, call it whatever you like, and we need to join forces to try and push against it. Its sword today has become the Palestinian cause. It's utilized against what we call Western civilization. It's not perfect, there's room for improvement, but it is the best thing we have, and they are determined to destroy it. We need, I think, now to raise awareness, to invite people based on the urgency we are facing, to understand that we need a radical solution. We need to understand, what do we mean when we say Palestine? What do we mean when we say peace? I'm a peace activist, and it provokes many, because I supported the war in Gaza. How can you support a war and be a peace activist? Because I want any ideology that resembles Hamas to be eradicated. Is it possible? Through a war, the ideology grows? No, and Germany is a good example. If Germany could be denazified, the Arab world must be de-radicalized, but they will not do that voluntarily, because the Germans did not say, come and cure us from Nazism. Today, there is an Israeli embassy in Germany and a German embassy in Israel, and that should teach us that everything is possible, but we need the political determination to find a cure. So even if that upsets, and I do apologize, if it hurts anybody's feelings, we need to understand what is the purpose of the Palestinian cause. We need to understand how Jordan became Jordan. I did not know before coming to Europe the very obvious. Lebanon, Syria, Kuwait, Iraq, Jordan are not much older than Israel. Israel has the right to exist. And the Hashemite family that governs Jordan comes from today's Saudi Arabia, from the Arabian Peninsula. They were gifted a massive chunk of land. It bothers nobody on the planet. That is Palestine, not Jordan. The British mandate of Palestine consisted of today's Israel, Gaza, the West Bank, and Jordan. It was already split, and 78% of it, the Arab world made Jordan and gave it to the Hashemite royal family. They made them king and queen. We need to find a radical solution and to think outside the box.
I would give the word to you, John, before Caroline.
Yeah, so I don't think that there's any going back to October the 6th. I think what existed on October the 6th and before that was very much a mess and a muddle, and it wasn't, it led to that, that terrible day. We can't have the Palestinian people being led by what is essentially an Islamist jihadist cult in Hamas and their allies. Personally, the way I look at it is that we need to work with the builders. We need people who want to build things, who want to build up society, who want to create opportunities for the citizenship, who want to build infrastructure. Not people who define themselves in terms of we're going to go and attack our neighbors, we're going to go and attack Israel, we're going to take that land away from them, we're going to send them to Poland or whatever the line is, right? So I think the most important thing for me is that there is constructive leadership who want to build things, they want to coexist next to Israel, and they want to they want to work together. So I would look at it in a framework like the Abraham Accords, which I think is and it's an excellent start. I think that that's absolutely the correct path. We're not going back to October the 6th. I am optimistic about the Trump plan and the ceasefire. Obviously there are very serious concerns, right? That Hamas is trying to cling on. Hamas is trying to cling on to power. That was the message of my article in the Free Press that you referenced. Hamas is trying very, very hard to take back control, take back domination over the Palestinian society. I think that there is a serious danger of that. We have to take that seriously. But at the same time, I think that overall the Arab states in the region and the states like America, states like countries in Europe, they don't want to see the Israeli-Palestinian conflict festering and repeating and regurgitating forever. So I think that all of the incentives are there. We have a model with the Abraham Accords, and it is a matter of applying, the right process to fix this issue as best as we can. Because if we don't fix this issue in a way that is going to be beneficial to both Israelis and Palestinians, then things are going to continue to fester, and things are, we're going to get thrown back into the same, cycle of problems and destruction and war, and we can't afford to do that again. We absolutely can't afford to do that again.
Thank you, John.
Hamas hat bis heute Waffen und Einfluss und sitzt ziemlich sicher. Und Terror ist eine sehr große, weltweite Organisation und verfügt über unermesslich viel Geld und viele Waffen. Und deshalb bin ich nicht sehr zuversichtlich, dass es uns mit den bisherigen Handwerkszeugen gelingen kann, in den demokratischen Ländern eine angemessene Antwort auf den Terror zu geben. Sie arbeiten mit Angst, sie arbeiten mit sexueller Gewalt. Und ich fürchte, wir werden den 6. Oktober schon deshalb nicht wiederbekommen, weil sie die Jesidinnen vergewaltigt haben, weil sie die Jüdinnen vergewaltigt haben, weil sie die Drusinnen vergewaltigt haben und weil sie sexuelle Gewalt und Terror als Waffe gegen die Freiheit einsetzen.
So Hamas still has a very secure and safe spot. Terror has a lot of weapons, a lot of money, a lot of support worldwide. It's organized worldwide, and I think that with democratic means in the democratic countries, we do need different means to go against this terror, and we cannot go back to October 6th. Because they did so many rapes of Druze and Hasidic women, and so I really believe we need different means.
Doch dass wir heute zusammengekommen sind, aus so vielen Ländern, mit so vielen Sprachen und mit so vielen Kompetenzen, lässt mich hoffen, dass wir ebenfalls ein weltweites Netzwerk gegen den Terror bilden können und eine angemessene Antwort finden. Vielen Dank.
But the fact that we are here together from so many countries, speaking so many languages, so many different skills, also gives me hope that we can also create our own network against terror, against hate, against anti-Semitism, and that's what we're here for. So thank you.
And I would, for the last 10, 15 minutes, maybe open the floor to questions, if anyone has any questions.
Thank you all for your words. This was a very inspiring panel. My first question is for Carolina. I just wanted to know if you ever had an experience within the protests where you held up your sign and someone was empathetic and identifying with the plight of the hostages, and if so, what that exchange was like. I also work in the field of peace building, Muslim-Jewish relations, and combating anti-discrimination, and I think one of the most scary things about the time that we're living in is that the humanization has gone into the background, and people haven't been able to recognize humanity of innocent lives lost across the Gaza border. And so I'm wondering if there were ever moments where you saw that transformation happen and what they looked like.
Vielen Dank für die Frage.
Thanks for the question.
Es kommen immer, wenn ich unterwegs bin, kommen Menschen dazu, Passanten oder Touristen, jüdische Mütter, andere Frauen und sagen, vielen Dank, dass Sie hier stehen, wie kann ich das unterstützen? Ich bin nie alleine. Die Bilder, die Sie sehen, zeigen immer nur einen Ausschnitt, aber es gibt unheimlich viel Unterstützung, sehr viele Gegendemonstranten und auch ganz viele Frauen und Männer, die sich während solcher Proteste zu mir gesellen.
So, maybe can I just translate? So when I'm at the demonstration holding my sign, I always get massive support. There are always people who come and join me or come and ask me, how can I support more? It's like normal men, women, it's Jewish mothers, it's from the society. So I never feel alone in this situation.
Ein kleines Beispiel. Ich habe einen kleinen Bei-mir-Coffee. Und wenn ich unterwegs bin, dann habe ich immer einen Blumenstrauß dabei. Der Blumenstrauß ist gut, man kann sich festhalten, man schlägt nicht zurück. Er ist ein Zeichen des Friedens. Der Blumenstrauß gehört zu meiner Außenwirkung. Über diesen Bei-mir-Coffee-Link gibt es so viele Frauen auf der ganzen weiten Welt, die mir das Geld für den nächsten Blumenstrauß schicken, weil sie nicht auf der Straße stehen können. Und ich finde, das ist auch etwas, jeder macht es in seinen Möglichkeiten. Und ich bin immer wieder gerührt, wenn ich aus Tokio den nächsten Blumenstrauß bekomme.
So when I'm standing at a demonstration, my thing is I always hold a bouquet of flowers in my hand. So, you know, when you're not getting wild, you're not hitting anybody, so it's kind of keeping you safe also. And like it's part of my style, let's say, and I receive a lot of help and financial support from women from all over the world to buy me the next bouquet of flowers for the next demonstration because they cannot join for any reasons. So I'm always very moved, for example, when I get a bouquet of flowers from a woman from Tokyo, for example, who saw my posts and who's supporting me also financially.
Just quickly to clarify, I'm also curious if anyone within the demonstrations that she was holding the sign up to ever had a moment where they said, we recognize the humanity of the hostages and what that... Yeah.
Also gab es auch jemand aus den Reihen von den Demonstranten selbst, die quasi sich mit den Hostages, mit den Geiseln...
Viele Demonstranten kenne ich seit 2 Jahren. Ich sehe sie immer wieder. 2-, 3-mal in der Woche treffe ich die Menschen, denn sie sind ja ebenso engagiert wie ich, nur aus einer anderen Perspektive. Ich habe im Winter 2023 einen Mann getroffen, der Familie verloren hat im Gazastreifen. Und wir trafen uns, sprachen miteinander und jetzt spricht er mit mir nicht mehr. Er sagt, er wird mir das nie vergeben, er wird sich niemals wieder mit einem Israeli unterhalten. Für ihn ist alles vorbei. Und ich traf ebenfalls vor 2 Jahren eine Frau und ich sehe sie auch jede Woche wieder. Und wenn wir uns sehen, umarmen wir uns immer. Sie trägt eine Kufia, sie trägt einen Hijab und sie ruft von Berlin bis nach Gaza, Yalla, Yalla, Intifada. Trotzdem, wir sehen uns. Und als die lebenden Geiseln jetzt zurückkamen, da kam sie und hat mir gratuliert und hat gesagt, wie schön, vielleicht kriegen wir beide doch noch Frieden. Und dafür, finde ich, lohnt sich die Arbeit.
So, a lot of the people who go for demonstrations, they have the same level of engagement than myself, so I meet them every single week. So I know a lot of them, the faces. And there was, for example, one man, I met him 2 years ago when we spoke, and he lost family members in Gaza. And he couldn't speak to any Israeli anymore. He didn't want to have contact. He blocked it. But there was another woman, and I also met her 2 years ago, and she's wearing a hijab and kufia, and she's shouting Yalla Yalla Intifada, something like that. And anyway, when she sees me, we hug each other. And now, when the hostages were released, she also gave me a hug, and she said, like, maybe one day us too, we can have peace. So this is hope for me also.
Anyone else?
I have a question from YouTube. They're following us. So, would it be possible to create a network of activists against anti-Semitism that could, because I don't know what the question is, they could support national or supranational organization and also report anti-Semitic option, like, for example, we have here the SEDEC, like Observatory, expressed not just on social media. In work lately, I often had to deal with this issue, and while in the USA there is already a direct line for reporting to the government, which I've already used. In Europe and Italy, there doesn't seem to be similar.
Is this for Caroline, for Rawan, for John? Maybe you want to answer it?
I'm not actually sure what the question is. Actually, it's going in circles.
Yeah, because it's
Is it possible to create a network of activists?
Like a supranational one?
Yeah, exactly. For what I understood, what he said, if it is possible to have a network support that is not social media, and that's something like a platform, like a government reporting that in USA already exists.
Even in Germany, there are platforms where you can report anti-Semitic incidents. There are legal projects who provide services pro bono. It's not everywhere because it is time-consuming. The process is difficult. So outside social media, there are initiatives, but you heard earlier, even when the work is very important, a lot of organizations face a problem when they need a budget. Money lacks, and on the other side, the other camp have a lot of money and resources. No matter what you can build, how can you counter a machine like Al Jazeera and a country that is as rich as Qatar is? So there are smaller initiatives that I'm pretty sure, I'm confident, that especially after October 7th, which exposed anti-Semitism and the fact that it is rampant not only in the Arab world, and the camp grows because they recruited a lot of people who mean well but joined their ranks. I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of policymakers and legislators and experts who are developing methods to counter this tsunami of hatred.
be told that like you answered the question.
Okay.
You can see me.
I think we have now run out of time. I would like to really thank Carolyn for being here, and Rowan and John for taking time to be with us. Thank you.
Istituisco questo così, mamma mia che freddo che fa.